My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. That is Unity stalking at 2:22 a.m., hovering over the Ontario Senior Center and doing so behind clouds while the entity is embarrassed of being seen stalking, even though they've been seen stalking me thousands and thousands of times. And you are dealing with mental illness, and so they do compartmentalize their clear and overt pattern of stalking me. And so this is what the entity is doing, while it is clearly known who it is and also what they are doing. And they are the demons that are stalking me, as you heard also by helicopter and flying off, as they are aware that they're being recorded. The entity is stalking me and is not headed to any destination and is merely doing so because they are mentally ill, obsessed stalkers at the Ontario Senior Center at it's 2:23 and where another plane is. And these are demons. This is the entity that's being federally prosecuted in the court. It is equally no destination. That's a matter of judicial notice. There's no takeoff that's occurring anywhere near the airport over here. And there are certainly no takeoffs where the entity is doing so at 2 o'clock in the morning, flying over the senior citizen apartment complex. And the entity is doing so while they are very much triggered. The obsession with stalking me is also an obsession with my opinions of them as I prosecute them for stalking. The entity is very much engaged in like a psychotic break. They have triggers when they listen to me describe how foolish, how idiotic, how obvious, and how criminal they are. And this is also the case when I laugh at these demons that are stalking me. And it's the same thing when they are referred to as things such as sex offenders, when you are stalking in the bathroom and monitoring genitalia of another person. To provide more plain activity right now is the entity that is equally stalking in the same way that you just heard moments earlier. There are no planes that are coming from the airport engaging in that sort of succession, and there are no takeoffs that are going to be heard at this location at 215 E.C. Street at the Ovid Family Community Library. And there are certainly no scheduled planes that are doing so and flying over here, sounding at this hour, at this elevation, at that succession. None of that has anything to do with takeoffs that are actually occurring. This is the entity that is stalking. And they are surrounded by facts that's proving nothing but stalking by those that are having a psychotic break. And their psychotic break is relevant to the necessity of involuntary commitments. These are demons that are stalking, and this is exactly what they were doing by helicopter, as the entity engaged in for about 6 minutes. And the moment that I started recording is when the psychopath flew away. This is the entity that is very much deranged in the mind, and they are putting their own co-defendants that are in a courtroom, not defending them. They're gang stalking in the court. They are gang stalking as there is nothing that is relevant whatsoever other than a criminal pattern of conduct regarding criminal acts that this entity has already committed in the courts, while the entity has used what are court hearings to prolong and delay and further facilitate this very criminal stalking. And those that are in the courts claiming to be engaged in any means of representing any aspect of this entity, they are being federally prosecuted just like the sex offenders who are providing evidence against the entire entity, including themselves. This is P.O.C. It is currently 2:26 a.m. and it is currently also Thursday, June 18th, 2026. All right, this is a matter of what is judicial notice that the planes that are taking off from the Ontario International Airport, in the same way that the planes that are taking off from the San Bernardino International Airport, from Cable Airport in Upland, California, and from Los Angeles International Airport in Los Angeles, there is no plane activity that is going to be heard at 215 E.C. Street. This is a matter of judicial notice. And also, the entity is engaging in what is repeatedly sounding plane activity pursuant to that which is exceeding stalking and that which is psychopathic as well. The entity is serving for what shall be involuntary commitments upon stalking me in planes and helicopters at the Ontario Ovid Family Community Library in a manner that is extraordinarily deranged, and also as the entity admits to its psychotic obsession with me, and to do so in the most elaborate, expensive, and costly manner, such as using planes that are clearly used to engage in what is using the most extreme and outrageous method of seeking the attention from someone that is not giving you any sort of attention that you want. This is, again, the entity that is mentally ill and that obsession with stalking me. And this is an entity, this is the entirety of the military that are cult members, that are demons, that are
suicidal, that are reckless in their lifestyles, and they're engaging in criminal activity together as a gang that is exposing the fact that they are unhinged and in need of restraints. That gang is engaging in what is providing a matter of what is judicially noticed facts in order to prosecute them. And they are also serving to provide evidence against the people of the state who shall compensate me and be federally prosecuted as well as criminals. And they're doing so while the entity is stalking again at what is 2:33 a.m. So this video is starting at approximately 2:31 a.m. where there are no flights that are scheduled from the Ontario International Airport that would sound anywhere over here. I would not have any indication. No one would have any indication at the Ontario Civic Center that a plane has taken off from the Ontario International Airport, and no takeoff from the airport is sounding or hovering over the sky space. There are no planes that are flying away from the airport and then hovering over this Ontario Civic Center, over next to the library, around the library. None of that audible activity that you hear is pursuant to any sort of takeoff. This is the gang members of the U.S. military who are highly psychotic and obsessed with me to the point to where they are forced to expose their obsession with me. But they also admit that they are stalking in doing so. And the obsession of these stalkers is the obsession with those that are in need of physical restraints. The entity engaging in what is stalking in the most extreme manner, and they are in need of the most extreme sort of treatment, while it is also that which the entity engages in order to psychologically torture. And instead of that being effective toward me, it is evidence used to prosecute and diagnose mental illness of the entity that is engaging in psychologically harmful and obsessive behavior that is intended to precede murder that this entity has plotted and is continuously engaging in. And they do so with their co-defendants that have been maintaining court hearings in order to prolong and enable this ongoing course of conduct, and for which those that are in the court engaging in gang stalking in that role, they are being federally prosecuted. All right, this is the P.O.C. It is currently 2:35 a.m. 6:19 a.m. on June 18, 2026. And just like last night, this is the entity that is engaging in what is ongoing criminal accumulation of charges, sentencing, damages are all relevant, including the gang stalkers that are monitoring me by virtue of criminal facilitation to enable the people of the state of California, the terrorists of the U.S. military, to continue this course of conduct. And that is by the entity that's engaging what is the delay of justice, the ongoing permission of the entity to gang stalk an American citizen while they trifle through that which is all criminal activity in the first place. Holding court hearings pursuant to what are criminal acts of defamation, that which is engineered by that very entity that are in the courtroom, while the entity is gang stalking. And just like you hear now, that's exactly what I want to document. Last night, the entity engaged in stalking for over 6 minutes by helicopter, and in stopping the moment that I started recording. That's the same U.S. military that is right now at 6:19, and now it is 6:20. And before that, this is about 45 seconds earlier, and about another minute before that, and the minute before that, and the minute before that. And the entities engaged in psychopathic pacing by planes over the senior center, over the related company's senior citizen apartment complex, the 280 North Lemon Apartments. This is the P.O.C. This is the entity that's monitoring on my device. So the podcast is being published, and the entity that is engaging in what is seeking to lie about my character, maintaining court hearings pursuant to what are the criminal acts, the act of terrorism by the entity regarding criminal defamation. That's what these court hearings are centered on. It's criminal activity by this entity. And while they engage in those criminal acts that are hosted, facilitated by the court system, the entity is simultaneously engaging in terrorism, which I'm documenting. This is the prosecution of those that are gang stalking through the court system. It is enabling. It is simultaneous. It is criminal facilitation. This is how the government continuously engages in the criminal pattern of conduct. And it is criminal activity while they maintain any court hearings, as though the entity has such authority to engage in terrorism. to permit the U.S. military to engage in terrorism while they are speaking of holding hearings about requesting continuances concerning criminal acts in the first place by this entity. It is all criminal defamation, and they are holding court hearings pertaining to their own criminal acts, their own defamatory acts committed against me. That's the entity that's engaging in malicious conduct, and they are being federally prosecuted. Okay, because the entity is engaged in that, I am documenting the ongoing terrorism by the U.S. military, who are psychotic. All right, and this is the entity that is, that's the fifth demon in a commercial plane soaring over the City Hall, Senior Center, and the related company's senior citizen apartment complex while I'm at the Ovitt Family Community Library. Robert and the Latina female are inside of page 1. The Securitas African-American female, who is captured on the golf cart, is stalking in concert with the military, and the overweight African-American male, who is homeless, engaging in ongoing serial stalking as well. They're all subject to federal prison while the entity is maintaining flight after flight after flight. And this is what an entity is now doing again at what is 6:22 a.m. This is referred to as psychopathic pacing. While the entity is engaged in this, I also documented it at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the entity repeats it again. They're doing so with the same demons, the serial stalkers that rely on what is their exercise regime while they're gang stalking with the military. I'm capturing that right now at 6:23 a.m. while you hear that plane activity. This is the P.O.C. Securitas security guards are all going to prison. That's Dylan, that's Leo, that's the African-American female that I refer to typically as the one with the mop on her head, the African-American female that works inside of the Ovitt Family Community Library that also changes her hair pieces a lot. That's how I refer to her. They're all going to prison, and there are also a history of Securitas security guards who are going to prison over the years, engaging in criminal summoning and kidnapping with the Ovitt Family Community Library, such as Diana. These demons that are on the record gang stalking me in the same manner that they are now, they are going to federal prison, and the federal government is going to use its power in order to get terrorists that have engaged in this conduct as though nothing is happening, and they went about their lives after engaging in terrorism, and they're going to prison. Okay, so this is my documentation, my evidence, which is going to accomplish that, and the federal government is going to serve justice. And it is also those who are in the court system. You are being documented sharing in terrorism right now while I'm subject to this pattern of conduct, and seeking to hold court hearings pertaining to that which is a criminal act committed by you via the court system is criminal activity as to why you are being federally prosecuted, and it is a basis of prison. And it is also the basis to lose your licensure to practice law because it is terrorism. This is that which is satisfying what is the moral turpitude issue, and it is exceeding that because it is terrorism. Literally, while I'm subject to it and the entity is not engaging in what is providing justice, you are engaging in the criminal pattern of conduct, which I've already prosecuted as underway in the criminal and civil court system. This is the P.O.C. It is 6:24 a.m. where another plane is flying by. This is what the entity has been doing while I've been on my device. So this is exactly what I was going to speak to. Approximately every 45 to 60 seconds, another commercial plane. And as the entity is doing now, they're doing so in the smaller planes. That's all the same gang members of the military. Okay, this is POC. It is, and they are acting in concert with the people of the state. And those that are serially stalking, like the African-American homeless male, he's sitting on the bench outside of the Page One Cafe in the middle of the Civic Center. That's prison. He's engaging in that with the Securitas security guards, and Securitas is being prosecuted as a corporate entity that's engaging in terrorism. I'm going to prosecute the company, and I'm prosecuting all of its employees who have, over the course of the history of this investigation, have engaged in terrorism, just like she is right now at 6:25 a.m. While the entity, it's a matter of what is a matter of, it's a judicially noticed fact, meaning this is the entity that is recognized already. The fact that you hear the plane activity is speaking to the fact that the entity is targeting, and they are targeting in conformity to the already well-documented pattern of conduct, where, by the way, the fake sun rises and sets, which is also a matter of what is a judicially noticed fact. In this environment is where surveillance is underway, and they are doing so pursuant to surveillance that is underway on my device, while the entity is engaging in what is gang stalking by maintaining court hearings pertaining to criminal acts committed by this entity, which is criminal defamation, which is no basis to permit the military to engage in terrorism. In fact, it is the evidence that the entity is gang stalking an American citizen. And for that, those that are in the criminal court system engaging in that means of the pattern of conduct shall be subject to federal prison and the loss of licensure. This is POC at 6:26 a.m. And so let me break this down even more clearly to those that even
practice law, but you are as ignorant as the demons pacing around me under the fake sun in planes and helicopters as well. While I'm documenting stalking me in planes and helicopters, I'm documenting you. You might as well be flying the planes because I'm prosecuting you. You are sharing as the entity engaging in that P.O.C. Just like any other, you know how to prosecute a robbery, a criminal conspiracy? The pattern of conduct is established and I'm prosecuting you. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:27 a.m. 6:30 a.m. The entity monitoring on my app regarding the creation of a MP4 video as I'm converting my audio in order to upload it onto YouTube, and as the app operation is interfered with pursuant to criminal monitoring. That's the significance of the engineered light. That's the significance of the plane after plane after plane. It's all amplified audible activity while the entity is surrounded with communication devices, the entity creating light activity. This entity is monitoring. That's also what is significant. It is psychopathic as you are analyzing the behavior. It is criminal surveillance regarding the operation of devices that are being monitored while I am being monitored, and the entity is stalking me while it is monitoring me, and the entity that is maintaining what are court hearings pursuant to criminal defamation, which the entity engages in while they are stalking and monitoring you in furtherance of murdering you, is the one that is being documented as well. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:31 a.m. This is another plane. The Ontario International Airport is not operating and taking off over here like I stated. This is the entity that's admittedly engaging in that, and so are those that are in the court system who are being federally prosecuted for terrorism in furtherance of murder of the one that they seek to criminally defame through the maintenance of court proceedings. That's how you're kidnapped, by the entity that kidnaps you by the gang stalking police, in concert with the gang stalking people of the state, who are acting in concert with those that are practicing law in the gang stalking courts, who entertain criminally defamatory criminal acts against the target individual who is in fact being stalked, as I'm documenting, by that very government. Okay, this is the entity that is literally engaging what is monitoring on my device, and they are highly unsophisticated, unintelligent, while they are engaging in the activity that's going to be the evidence that's going to be used against the entity that's in the court. Meaning, the issue is, am I actually suffering damages? Am I actually being gang stalked while the entity is simultaneously calling itself an authority to be in the courts, delay justice because there is some issue pertaining to my character that the court system that is gang stalking believes interferes with the provision of justice, meaning the entity continuously gang stalks me as though that is the pivotal issue, while the entity tries to make an issue regarding that they have engineered regarding the character of the target individual, when the gang stalking is very real. The entity has totally removed what is the foundational, the germane issue, that you're stalking me. And this is the evidence that answers that question, and they will be federally prosecuted. This is P.O.C. This is the third plane. It's 6:33 a.m. I'm literally prosecuting you in the court. All right. The entity is... You can hear the audible activity. The entity is hiding behind what I've already established what's going on here at the Ontario Civic Center at 6:33 in the morning. The entity is rising and setting a fake sun, and the entity is hovering over, and you're necessarily targeting this location. It's a matter of what is judicial notice. These are not planes taking off from the airport. They're hovering just like they are west of this location, just like they are in Upland, California, stalking me, and doing so pursuant to surveillance in concert with the people of the state who share in that system. And this is everything that the corrupt gang stalking courts, gang stalking attorneys, gang stalking judges rely upon. The defamatory, perjurious testimony of and the libelous, criminally defamatory information, irrelevant opinions pursuant to criminal acts committed by those that claim to be in the medical profession, having any relationship with me, having any sort of diagnosis, having any sort of paperwork with my name. It's all admissions to criminal activity. There is no relationship that exists. This entity that is stalking me has repeatedly engaged in kidnapping, which I've also documented, which I've also shown was within the pattern of conduct while they are creating the criminal encounters upon targeting in the first place. And that is what you are relying on, is your own criminal acts as an entity. And then you're engaging what is delaying, what is stopping this ongoing terrorism. This is the case against you, and you are engaging in criminal activity while you are in any courtroom and an American citizen is still subject to it. You're going to be federally prosecuted. You are subject to federal prison. It is terrorism. Those that engage in that, they go to prison. This is the P.O.C. The entity is engaging, in other words, behind the clouds, which I've already established. It's no mystery here. I've left no questions unanswered. What needs to be understood is that the entity is not holding any court hearings that are going to interfere with justice for an American citizen, unless those court hearings are, where is the warrant to conduct the raid of the city hall, to conduct the raid of the senior center, to conduct the raid of the airport, where the military are engaging in what is psychopathic pacing, using all their planes, using the heliport, conducting a raids pursuant to the police department, pursuant to the gang stalking libraries, where the people of the state are engaging in real life terrorism of an American citizen. That's what, when you're talking about how you're going to execute martial law, outside of that, engaging in justice, you're going to prison. You're being federally prosecuted. This is the P.O.C. All right, you will see the entity engaging in what are U-turns over the city hall, all right, where I'm at. And this is what the entity is doing every 60 seconds. All right, that is the clear targeting behavior of the entity that is acting in concert with the entity that's maintaining court hearings pursuant to what is gang stalking. The government system is that they believe that they can stalk and monitor you. And then while they are engaging in criminal activity against you, in other words, the government, by virtue of its identity and the intent to maliciously weaponize that against American citizens who are perfectly sound mind, not only have a perfectly sound mind, but are advanced, gifted, capable in one way or another, which is why they are targeted by a mentally deranged and corrupt government body that is keeping everyone under surveillance in concert with the mentally ill population. All of that, which I just stated, is proven by evidence as well. And the entity engages in what is, it believes to be the perfect system, because it's the government that is, number one, stalking, which is established by evidence. The government then engages in defaming your character in order to accomplish what is kidnapping you. And it's a kidnapping because the government doesn't have any authority to maintain any court hearings about you, number one, meaning you don't have any jurisdiction. It's all initiated by the criminal acts of the entity in the first place. But it's a kidnapping when they are pursuant to their criminal activity against an American citizen, claiming that you're mentally ill, which they are also engineering pursuant to criminal acts committed. It's all initiated by the criminal activity of the entity, and which the entity has to do because you're not breaking the law. So they have to kidnap you and claim that you molested a child, like they did on June 16, 2022, in order to get you into the clutches of criminals who will then claim that they diagnosed you while they were kidnapping you and gang stalking you, including in that facility. This is how the entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct in the entire time. They are targeting you, and while they are psychologically torturing you, they are then using what is their abuse against you as the information that they're analyzing with regard to your mental illness. And in my case, the entity doesn't even have that. While I am documenting and maintaining an investigation, they are making up information about my being mentally ill and my acting out and my being irrational, my being bipolar. And I am none of those things, which my ongoing evidence also shows. While I compose myself and I document and I take names and I note and analyze positions and the behavior of those that claim to be in these positions and the impropriety of what they're doing, the entity is, like you're listening to, clearly stalking. And they're stalking at the facility in the specific environment. They're doing so while they hold hands with the gang stalking police departments and the people of the state, who are all surrounded by the pattern of conduct. And they are engaging in what is then stalking you as an entity, then seeking to defame your character in order to engage in what is under the law, which has to be written out. Why is this person in the mental institution? Why is this person in prison, etc.? Because through the court system, they were determined to be guilty of X, Y, and Z. They were determined to be mentally ill based on the medical opinions of the gang stalking medical professionals, while the entity is engaging in this the entire time. That's the plan of the entity. They're holding court hearings pursuant to criminal activity. And the entity that's engaged in those court hearings, it's the pattern of conduct, and they're going to prison. This is literally the criminal handiwork of the government that maintains that. And that is, I want to be clear, has already failed. So the entities engaging in it while this ongoing evidence by an American citizen is coexisting. And this is the entity, the government, the court system that is deliberately disregarding what is clear evidence, the absence of any mental illness, the absence of any credibility, the absence of any legitimacy, which they're not ignorant about their own lack of legitimacy. This is an entity that is acting with impunity, which is why you're going to federal prison while you've been conducting court hearings about your own criminal acts that you cannot make sense of, and you also cannot scrutinize this investigation. You can't even make a targeted individual that conducts an investigation that maintains this body of evidence that is speaking at the outset, which would be at the very least probable cause to suspect that you don't have a case. In other words, the entity is blatantly disregarding the obvious nature of its own criminal conduct, its own improprieties, in order to keep an American citizen in this circumstance while continuously gang stalking, and you're holding court hearings about what is your own criminal act. That's the pattern of conduct, to defame while they stalk you in order to kidnap you. And why do they do that? Remember, the entity has lied about my being alive. The entity has lied about my identity. This is the entity that's not talking about the fact that they have a fraudulently procured power of attorney. That's a criminal act. I know nothing about it. When you have a power of attorney, when you have these sort of devices, the so-called benefactor, myself, would be one that's a part of that process. It would not be a secret. It would be something that I would agree to. It would be something that I would acknowledge. Tracy Banks, the entity that's gang stalking, has maintained these things behind my back while lying about the fact that I am a wealthy person. It's directly relevant to the entity that's stalking and seeking to maintain court hearings about mental illness that suddenly arrived out of nowhere when I moved away from Tracy Banks, and she could no longer falsely depict herself as one that is any sort of having any sort of fiduciary responsibility or obligation over me. Meaning, she wants to claim that she's taking care of me, and that's why she is one that should maintain control over my money and assets. An adult woman that's been taking care of myself since I was 18, who went to college on my own, financed my own education in law school. I don't have to go through my resume. This public investigation is more than enough to prove that a government is engaging in targeting you and has no basis to engage in any sort of court hearing, which is how an entity is permitting the ongoing pattern of conduct in the hopes that you have some public breakdown that then they will use to retroactively make legitimate what has already been proven. There is no mental illness here. In fact, the entity is mentally ill, including while UPS does cartwheels, clearly targeting as an airport, while you are in an area where there will be no. And why is it relevant? Because the entity is targeting in the way in which the evidence shows I'm documenting as a pattern of conduct. There is no evidence of any mental illness when you're not imagining it, you're documenting it. And the entity has still to include me in any court hearing while you're talking about that which you're relying on, the denigration of somebody's character, in order to still continuously engage in what is delusional. That you're going to successfully defame the federal prosecutor, that you're going to successfully defame the one that is exposing treason, that you're going to successfully defame in the absence of that person, that American citizen who's perfectly capable and competent enough to speak to their knowledge, their memory, their experiences, their feelings, what it is that they are subject to, and you are intentionally leaving that perfectly capable person outside of your criminal acts in a court hearing while they're documenting ongoing terrorism by that same entity. You are a part of that same entity. That's not a coincidence. It's the pattern of conduct by the U.S. government that's engaging in terrorism by the U.S. military in concert with the people of the state. The poor liars that are gargoyles spitting out light, stalking under a fake sun, the scientific impossibility. This is speaking to massive corruption. You're going to prison gang stalking me by the court system. That's what you're doing. You're going to federal prison. What's going to be raided is your home. What's going to be raided is that courtroom where where you are engaging in what is criminal activity that is threatening the life of an American citizen, where you don't even have jurisdiction. You don't understand what you have stripped yourself of, what you have waived, which is authority when you first engage in terrorism of an American citizen. Outside of any legal basis. You are not then also holding a court hearing as to whether this person has a right to prosecute the government by you manufacturing and engineering facts and information about them being mentally ill. And no, moreover, we can even concede that. Let's talk about you and your so-called case, because your so-called case relies on the fact that I'm not being gang stalked, and the fact of gang stalking is already established. So what, pray tell, are you talking about, demons? You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. I hope you know that. With your bar licensure revoked, you're going to federal prison. You are gang stalking me with the corrupt medical professionals. You're gang stalking me with the demons that are in the city of Ontario and Upland, stalking me at the library, on the roads and the highways, in the commercial planes. You're gang stalking me while the demons are clearly targeting as an airport, doing U-turns and cartwheels, and you're gang stalking me. And defamation is insufficient. It was never a sound plan. You require the silence of an American citizen. And the more noise that they make in the background, the more guilty that you are. There's no plane activity that's occurring from the airport at the Ovid Family Community Library. The entity is emptying the garbage on a daily basis as I'm documenting on my device. The entity is engaged in what is amplified audible activity, monitoring me right now, which is you monitoring me. You are in no position to hold any court hearings about an American citizen being terrorized. And the pattern of conduct supersedes your malicious exercise of authority in the court. Or do you not understand how public corruption is prosecuted? Where you traditionally have authority as the government, that is now an issue regarding what is actually occurring. Is it a fact that you're engaging in a matter of public corruption? Is there probable cause to question whether or not you actually have authority? And where you have the pattern of conduct that is underway, the irrebuttable presumption of public corruption is thereby established. And so what that actually means is that you're not conducting any legitimate court hearings. And because you say that you're engaging in X, Y, and Z does not mean that it's X, Y, and Z. And you certainly do not have any authority that is usurping the authority of an American citizen to prosecute you for terrorizing them, which is exactly what this evidence is. That's how you prosecute for public corruption. The government that is terrorizing you and then thinks that they're going to conduct court hearings to supersede your evidence that they're terrorizing you, you're delusional. And your court hearings, your bar license, your position on the bench is not superseding the Constitution. You've engaged in far too much criminal acts of corruption. You've been drunk with power. You're dizzy and you don't understand what's actually going on. You're going to federal prison for terrorizing me and for permitting the conspiracy to murder me to persist and continue while you had facts and information in your face, literally my social media that you're referring to, meaning you're not ignorant about it. You're specifically knowledgeable about it while you refer to it. That's an admission. And the entities engaging in this conduct while you are aware of that which is, at the very least, if you were to successfully feign ignorance about your own criminal pattern of conduct, that there is reasonable basis to question whether or not an American citizen is being targeted. And that there is, in fact, no relevant means to speak to their character when they're providing a body of evidence in the P.O.C. My social media, which you're very much aware of, goes back to 2018. An ongoing systematic body of evidence. A pattern that is laid out. Regardless of your opinion about the fact that it's supernatural, that's not the target individual or any American citizen's mental illness. That's the entity. That's your mental illness, by the way. That's the entity's mental illness. That's their psychotic pattern of conduct. It bears no reflection on that American citizen that's being terrorized. All you have to do is provide documentation that is establishing, in fact, a pattern of conduct that is speaking to what is surveillance, unlawful surveillance by the government itself, who does not have authority to conduct any arrest, especially when you have committed no crime, which is also a pattern of targeting by gang stalking police. The same gang stalking police that you require in order to establish any sort of encounter with them and with so-called medical professionals. It's always through criminal acts committed by the entity. Always. You don't have in Erica Spencer any sort of blemish on the record. In fact, everything that you stated about Erica Spencer on the record is a record that you've engineered. So in other words, I'm mentally ill because the entity is saying that I'm mentally ill. I'm a criminal because the entity is stating that I'm a criminal, but that's all that you have. Whereas the targeted individual, Erica Spencer, has evidence that you're stalking her. And it's tangible evidence. It's evidence that you're listening to right now in the background. while you understand the nature of the P.O.C. And because your demons engaging in what is a satanic system of monitoring, which is inhumane and psychopathic and sexually perverted, it's no less evidence. And it is a seamless, clear pattern of conduct where I'm suffering harassment and defamation, sexual violence, stalking, as an entity which is surveillance by the government that doesn't have any warrant or probable cause or legitimate government interest. And by virtue, by the way, of this very investigation, you had more than enough to demonstrate that you're not gang stalking through the court system. You had more than enough to engage in what is requesting that an American citizen speak to their experiences and clarify what it is that they're publishing on the internet if you were conducting an actual investigation, if you were not engaged in criminal facilitation, if you were not unreasonably engaging in the very course of conduct which is a threat to the life of an American citizen. If that were the case, then I would not be here today, this morning, still documenting the fact that the U.S. military feels very comfortable stalking me in planes and helicopters. With your knowledge. Oh, your knowledge about my social media. But let's be honest, you know all about the pattern of conduct because you're engaging in it. There are no coincidences under the fake sun. You don't have a government that's engaging in this level of corruption that doesn't include the court system, those that are conducting court hearings. And you have the people of the state that are comfortable to bring their babies and everything and be in front of my camera, engage in acts of violence. Where does that audacity come from? That impunity? Because they think someone like you, an entity, the court system itself is going to find a way to get them off, to get away with it. And it's not. It's the perfect setup because you are going to prison. This is your criminal activity. You, in other words, are the reason why it's happening. You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison while you hear UPS and Southwest Airlines and American Airlines engage in a pattern of conduct that is underway throughout the state of California, while the demon-possessed, that is the corrupt U.S. government, is engaging in the P.O.C. with the state of California. As I documented in the city of Ontario, as I documented in the city of Upland, as I remain subject to it. And it is a matter of what is judicially known as facts. That the sun will not rise and set at one address. And that is evidence that you're not going to disregard. No matter what is your personal opinion about it, being maintaining a fact-based and credible investigation, a legitimate one, regarding the claims of an American citizen that has unprecedented allegations that you should and you would ordinarily give ear to, but for your being engaged in it and your willingness to entertain defamation that makes no sense even on paper, rather than what is paying attention to what is a body of evidence that's published on social media. You disregard that in order to entertain that which doesn't even make any sense, because somebody that's mentally ill is not conducting the investigation of the P.O.C. It's not happening at the same time. You're going to prison. This is P.O.C. The entity's taken off behind the gang stalking City Hall in Ontario, and doing so at what is 6:52 a.m., where there are no scheduled flights, and there are no flights that are taken off from the airport. There is no flight that is already taken off from the airport that is going to cause any sort of public nuisance like what I'm documenting. And that is the court system that is engaging in the pattern of conduct in concert with the people of the state who are stalking in the path with light activity. You'll see the vehicle, the SUV, with their tail lights in perfect alignment with my person. They are stalking in the path and they are pacing on B Street, including the Ontario Fire Department, where the people of the state are engaging in psychopathic pacing on the roads and the highways. They're doing so on in the sky space over the Senior Center, City Hall, and related companies, 280 North Lemon Apartments, the Senior Citizen Complex, where they're doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning. All of these are relevant facts regarding the impropriety of what the entity is engaging in. And none of this is anything that you, the entity, has looked into contrary to what you are actually interested in, something to substantiate. But I want to be clear, the evidence of the P.O.C. also shows that it is legally irrelevant what you are trying to focus in on. Okay, under the evidence code, and under federal rules, it is legally irrelevant that you are trying to go off on a red herring regarding what is highly prejudicial pertaining to the character. This is what you're relying on in order to disregard, supersede, render illegitimate the claims of an American citizen, and they are more than substantiated with regard to the P.O.C. that's published on social media. It is a matter of what is excluded. It's excluded evidence. And you're literally delaying justice. That is, you are engaging in criminal monitoring and furtherance of murdering me by maintaining court hearings that are criminal acts regarding gang stalking. Gang stalking is a term of art. And you're doing so regarding that which is legally irrelevant because of its highly prejudicial nature, where you would interfere with that which is irrelevant pertaining to the character of the one who is in fact being gang stalked. This is P.O.C. You're going to prison. It's 6:54 a.m. It's Thursday, June 18, 2026. $6:54 a.m. Not only is the entity subject to prison, the terrorists are going to be involuntarily committed regarding the mentally ill methods of stalking an American citizen. That is also documenting it. The entity is engaging in what is the very expensive and also highly malicious while they are stalking you, and then also seeking to conduct itself as though it has any legitimate basis of authority, such as conducting court hearings, and doing so as the military that are actually engaged in terrorism and not engaged in protecting an American citizen or American citizens, including as they're gang stalking with the people of the state. They are not protecting American citizens, and they are also empowering our enemies, by the way, with whom they are gang stalking American citizens. It's 6:55 a.m. This is the evidence that's going to serve to have the entity. Ironically, while the entity seeks to defame the character of the targeted individual, this evidence is going to be used to have the actual terrorists themselves. They're going to be committed. This is P.O.C. And by the way, this is the entity that's engaging in what is monitoring on my device. So while the entity is interfering with the operation of my device in order to publish podcasts, that's the unlawful interference in an ongoing case. And by the way, it is a matter of no matter of coincidence. It's not a coincidence that the entity is seeking to obstruct justice by interfering with my evidence being published on the internet while you're simultaneously holding court hearings, trying to figure out some way to defame an American citizen's character, make that defamation legitimate, make it salient, make it relevant, make it seem factual, because it doesn't, and it's not. And that will never be the case, nor will this be the way in which any American citizen will ever be targeted again. You're going to federal prison for this. It is literally the act of terrorism. You are as guilty as the one that is sitting here pacing all around, engaging in mentally ill behavior, stalking with impossible light. You're as guilty. You are sharing in that same pattern of conduct while the system targets an American citizen. You're going to federal prison for it. It's not a lesser charge. It's not less serious. It is literally why a population is feeling empowered to do so. You are the cause. And you're going to prison for that. And they continuously present evidence like they are, like I'm documenting all day long. All these demons do is present evidence against each other. They're presenting evidence against you. You're going to prison. P.O.C. All right, this is the entity monitoring on my device. It's 6:57 a.m. All right, 7 a.m., Securitas, light activity, page 1 cafe, pacing in relevant position. They're monitoring with the entity that is stalking with another plane that's amplified in volume, planes that are targeting by virtue of being over here while the people of the state are gang stalking me with the military. It's 7 a.m. 7:04 a.m. $7:11 a.m. I'm going to take a screenshot of what they're monitoring on my phone right now. I'm using the audio to video converter that they're interfering with the operation of. It's a simultaneity of conduct. The plane activity occurs as you engage in operation of your device, while Securitas is stalking in the path with light activity, while the demons are monitoring as well, stalking with noise, with simultaneity to what you're doing. It directly impacts the device. I'm going to prosecute not only for this monitoring, but you need to understand that this is an unlawful search, that surveillance is underway in the U.S. And the government's not doing it by itself. The people of the state are the government, engaging in this surveillance system. And I'm prosecuting for that. The entities engaging in surveilling me in furtherance to trying to murder me. And before they do that, they want to defame your character.
And I've shown how all of that is fraudulent. All of it is pursuant to criminal activity. The entity has no legitimate basis, nor is it ever legally relevant to try to rebut evidence of your criminal activity with trying to say, oh, I'm not guilty because they're crazy. Whether they're crazy or not, you're still on video evidence and a massive amount of evidence engaging what is stealing from them. You still engaged in raping them. You still engaged in assaulting them. You still engaged in stalking them, whatever the crime is. The entity, the government, thinks that they can just call you names and then get off on the crime. And that is absolutely not how the criminal justice system operates. They're being prosecuted for corruption. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. I'm taking an image of the entity that it says unable to play the video. So that's the significance. It's already stalking. And I just want to be clear, this is showing you obsession. They're going to prison for this, and they are still engaging in the conduct right in the face of the military tribunal. In the military tribunal, they're going to do justice. They're not going to, like what these demons are doing, the military and the gangster, they're not going to engage in what is maintaining criminal activity, no matter how obvious it is, and doing it in front of the whole world, regardless of the consequence. No, they're going to engage in justice, and they're going to provide justice. The entity is going to be committed. This is obsession. So while you're engaging in the criminal activity, and you initially intended for that to be secretly underway so that you could successfully claim that somebody else is crazy, that somebody else documents and proves that you are targeting them, in fact, which is unprecedented criminal activity that no authoritative and legitimate and entity with clean hands is going to disregard, especially when it is supported with the body of evidence as it's P.O.C. You don't just overlook that. But nonetheless, the entity is doing so while that's desperation and obsession, while they will monitor, while the evidence of them stalking and monitoring is being captured in real time. That's what you're paying into. That's what you're analyzing right there. Okay, this podcast is being published. I'm showing you this is the monitoring, and they're doing it right in front of you. The entity that's gang stalking via criminal acts in a court relevant to what are the legally irrelevant and highly prejudicial information that a government injects in order to get away with targeting an American citizen, which is terrorism in the U.S., is the basis of federal prison. The very officers of the court are going to federal prison for monitoring. Alrighty, it is currently 7:14 a.m. I did take a screenshot of that, and that is a play-by-play regarding how you are monitoring communication devices, and the entity is doing so with the people of the state, engaging in the elements as I've broken it down for you: audible activity, relevant positioning, and also light activity. And the entity is clearly doing that when there are no takeoffs from any airport that are going to occur over the Civic Center, the City Hall, a senior citizen complex, and the entity is engaging in that, which is a matter of judicially noticed facts. So this is not a mystery, and it's some sort of fact to be addressed. No, it's a matter of judicial notice. The airport is over 4.5 miles away. Northwest is where you are coming from the airport in order to engage. And remember, they're doing it with Delta Airlines that has a terminal assigned, Southwest Airlines, Terminal 4. They're doing it with UPS. They're engaging in U-turns, and they're engaging in cartwheels. They're not even headed toward a destination. They're doing so at the high rate of frequency that I'm documenting it. They're doing it with simultaneity to my operation of my device. They're doing it not coincidentally when I'm capturing the evidence about it. This is a pattern of conduct. There are no coincidences here. The entity is monitoring, and they're targeting literally the evidence. And the evidence that they're targeting is going to be used as evidence, because my evidence is always going to be published. I document the entity that seeks to interfere with an investigation about itself, while it then thinks it's going to supersede that evidence and just claim that an American citizen is crazy. They did it to me because I'm the one that's going to prosecute that corrupt system. And that's how officers of the court that facilitate it, and you think your bar license means that you're impervious. No, your bar license means you're going to prison for terrorism, for abuse of position. And I will be the one that takes your license. I know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing, and you have far exceeded that reasonable basis of claiming that you're ignorant. You're engaging in that against the unsophisticated targeted individual who has much less evidence than I, who cannot articulate, who cannot represent, who are not going to sua sponte, prosecute and represent and protect themselves in court. And you're doing this against somebody who very well is trained in the law and provides evidence, even recites it to you, and legally analyzes the facts and provides a factual analysis. And then you think you're still going to defame that person? This is an entity that engages in a very specific pattern of conduct over and over and over again. And their formula doesn't work on me. It does not work. You're going to prison for this, though.
You're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. It's 7:17 a.m. The entity is monitoring. I'm going to take a screenshot of the app. This is relevant to surveillance. The app itself is not malfunctioning. My device is not malfunctioning. This is relevant to what you need to know. This is the surveillance that we are all subject to. And you're under surveillance on the internet. Every website that you're engaging in, the very companies that are maintaining these, for example, platforms, just use social media, but it's all under surveillance. And those companies are engaging in surveilling you as well. They are engaging in the surveillance system, just like I'm showing you the people of the state are. Okay? The entity is doing so regarding what is evidence. And so that is going to enhance federal charges, sentencing, and damages. They try to defame me while I'm prosecuting you. This is absurd. This is the entity that's doing so. This is the court. This is literally the court. While they call themselves holding court hearings, no, you're not. This is the court. And in a courtroom, by the way, where you are prosecution and defense, this is the defense attorney trying to defame the prosecutor. That's literally what they're doing. It's absurd. It is absurd. This is an entity that's engaging in a POC that was never designed to withstand scrutiny and never designed or intended to go against someone that has the wherewithal, the legal skill set of the very entity itself that targets individuals that cannot defend themselves, that cannot speak for themselves, that don't even know, and let alone the fact that these are demons that they cannot discern. They're being terrorized, they're being psychologically tortured. And then the government is claiming, oh, look, they're crazy. They're lying, they're just crazy. And we want to put them in this facility for the protection of everybody else. And I'm also going to take all their money. That's the pattern of conduct. You're going to prison for targeting me. And not only are you going to give me all my money, you're going to pay me interest. You're also going to pay me with regard to all the ways in which you've engaged in terrorism. You're defunding the gang stalking libraries, the gang stalking police departments, the gang stalking fire departments, the gang stalking military. You're going to pay me. This is the pattern of conduct. It's 7:19 a.m. $7:25 a.m. And don't just pay attention to the plane activity. McCarthy is in the background monitoring, or the construction company in particular that is engaged in what is the guise for criminal presence, audible activity creation, and light activity. While the military is stalking by flying over, they are monitoring as well. Okay? They are gang stalking. There is no such thing as legal presence in the path while the United States maintains criminal surveillance, including while they maintain surveillance of any person in furtherance of murder. There's no such thing. And the entity is the one that's delusional about that. They think if they put their hands in their pockets, if they come with children, if they report to work, if they have a smile on their face, if they even have a conversation with you, then that's some sort of exception. It doesn't exist. It's P.O.C. at 7:26 a.m. They're monitoring my use of another app. $7:27 a.m.
My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California.
All right, that's the podcast that I'm publishing, and that's what the entity is monitoring. So as I open up another app, everything that I'm doing, that's how you also know you're under surveillance. The entity is maintaining systematic flight. That's the mode. The entity could do the same thing with helicopter. The entity could do the same thing with vehicles, but I'm at the Civic Center, so they're not having a car, one after another, after another, after another, drive right next to me. That's what they're doing on Euclid Avenue. However, it's not random traffic. These are demons. So every vehicle at every moment that someone is crossing path in the path, it's all systematic, very highly detailed, satanic methods of stalking. These are creatures. They're not normal human beings. They're all monitoring together. And these are monitoring spirits that are using planes. And the U.S. military is going to be federally prosecuted as mentally ill, but they are demon possessed, and that's the root cause of this corruption.
7:35 a.m. What the U.S. military is doing by commercial plane and by smaller plane, the entity is doing with the people of the state. The people of the state are stalking just in the same level of psychopathic, obsessive, detailed manner regarding everything I'm doing on my phone, which the entity of population is aware of. It is an unprecedented, never before contemplated level of surveillance in violation of the Constitution. It's not just the government. The government's engaging in surveillance through everyone around you who are sharing knowledge that they should not have with regard to an unprecedented violation of your privacy, searching your device and keeping it under surveillance. And when they're being prosecuted like they are, they're engaging in what is now interfering in a federal case, which is also why the people, the state, is going to be locked down by martial law. These are animals. And they engaged in trying to target the person that's prosecuting. You're not stopping their prosecution. Now you're going to experience what it is to be locked down as a whole state, which is exactly what these barbarians need. For you to witness the entity engage in this conduct against somebody that is enforcing their rights, as opposed to them engaging in what is secretly murdering someone and secretly torturing them and violating them and then lying about that person's character while they do so, and then successfully taking their life, taking their money, taking their liberty. Yeah, that's not happening here. So you're looking at what they're doing, and then you imagine what they do to others that cannot defend themselves. That's why they're going to be locked down with martial law like zoo animals. That's exactly why. It's the ultimate act of foolishness to do so. This is all evidence. Every single last part of it is evidence. And they're doing it before the whole world. So there's no controversy here. And there is absolutely no discussion about what is defamation. That's going out the window, and everybody entertaining that, including the court, you're going to be prosecuted. The court is a part of the criminal pattern of conduct. It's as simple as this is what happens when you engage in public corruption. And there is nothing in the Constitution that suggests that you are impervious to or above the law at all. You're supposed to be engaging what is interpreting the law, abiding by the law, aiding in what is the legitimate enforcement of the law, not facilitating its systematic violation of an American citizen at that. This is domestic terrorism, and it is facilitated through the court system, and that is also not foreign. I've already documented it. And it is literally down to the detail of monitoring my device where evidence is being published and created and documented and stored, and you are in violation of an ongoing federal investigation. And just like any other federal case, there's charges for that. It's obstruction. P.O.C. It's 7:38 a.m. (7:41 a.m.) The demons that are sitting around stalking are engaging in stalking with noise as well. Mentally ill behavior, just as mentally ill and deranged is stalking with light. And this is what an entity is doing. They're using planes to do that. You need to understand that these are very much mentally ill people. The objective is to, everything you do, noise. Everything you do, noise in the light. Everything you do, noise in the light while I surround you. Gang stalking, surveillance, demons monitoring. Okay, this is the entity that is psychopathic because they also seek to maintain an outward nonchalant demeanor while they are monitoring you, which is not normal. It is absolutely psychotic. Okay, it's very creepy. And the entity seeks to do this in plain sight while they psychologically torture their victim. And while maintaining that outward demeanor, this is where you're getting to, oh, you're hallucinating, oh, you're crazy. That's not really happening. And the targeted individual is being defamed by the very psychopaths themselves. This is where the entity is not facing any sort of evidence that they now have to just act like doesn't exist and conduct in front of the world that is witnessing in real time while the evidence is being created. And everyone is looking at what is very much happening. And the entity is engaging in what is showing how a corrupt system defames American citizens who are perfectly sound of mind being targeted by the government. That is filled with mentally ill people who are, in fact, demon possessed as well. And this is speaking to a demon-possessed population. The entity is in the background stalking with noise. So there's some zoo animal in the background making an ongoing clanging noise. And the moment that I, remember the entity's monitoring me, so the moment that I began to get my device so you can listen to that, This is somebody that's not sitting around me looking at me, not standing over me looking at my phone, but pursuant to my use of my device, closing an app, opening an app, deleting, clearing the cache, ongoing noise, clank, clank, clank. And as I go to record that, then the demons, when I started this recording, you could hear the plane activity. They would rather you hear the plane activity than that noise, which is indicative of the people of the state who are sitting around, regardless of whether they're looking at their phone that they're monitoring on, or looking at their baby, looking in the stroller, looking at dog poo on the ground. They're monitoring. And the entities engaging in what is noise creation pursuant to knowledge while they're monitoring they're monitoring me, but generally speaking, while they're monitoring another person. Okay, there is no specific posture or direction that you're standing in or something that you need to be doing or not be doing in order to engage in monitoring, by the way. The entities engaged in what is under all circumstances criminal presence. You see them, you see the establishment, it's a crime. This is how the government's engaging in surveillance, and you will not be getting out of any prosecution. And also, you're delusional when you engage in one thing or another and you think that that makes you, I'm just going to document you exhibiting severe mental instability, and that's where you're going to be committed. Okay, you're going to just jump beyond, it's escalating beyond what is prosecution as a terrorist. It's jumping and escalating beyond prison time. If you're violating the law to this degree, requiring mandating prison, you're going straight to the institution. You're going to be committed. While they engage in things that a psychopath thinks, oh, if I do this, if I say that, if I act like that, if I look in this direction, if I do it even more and more and more, oh, then I'll look like I'm not. They're psychotic. They're delusional. They're monitoring under all circumstances. That's why the environment is here. That's why the government is here stalking. And everybody, that's clearly not hidden. And so who was going to forget that? It's only the delusional psychopaths that have forgotten that. All right? And there is a wake-up call that an entity is learning in the court. You're being prosecuted. You're all being prosecuted. This is P.O.C. It's 7:46 a.m. It's still 7:46 a.m. P.O.C. And these are demons that are manifesting. Every plane you hear, this is demonic. So this is the government showing you that they're demon possessed while they engage in criminal activity. They're doing so while the people of the state are pacing communication device in her right hand, maintaining the pattern of conduct while they're stalking in the path with the entity that's engaging in that conduct. That's what you'll see. I just go ahead and took a picture. It's the same thing going on while I'm using my device. This is surveillance by an entity. Laverne University of Law is engaged in criminal surveillance. The Ontario City Hall is engaged in criminal surveillance. The Ontario Senior Center is engaged in criminal surveillance. The Ovid Family Community Library, Page One Cafe, is engaged in criminal surveillance. The related companies, 280 North Lemon, Senior Citizen Apartment Complex, City Senior Center Apartments, are engaged in criminal surveillance. Wells Fargo at 240 North Euclid Avenue is engaged in criminal surveillance. Saris Regis Group, Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments at 320 North Euclid Avenue, is engaged in criminal surveillance. The Ontario Town Square, that's another facilitating venue of the City of Ontario. It's engaged in criminal surveillance. The people of the state are sitting on the benches with their devices, sitting around monitoring, taking turns pacing, coming right down here and walking by me, walking back and forth. The entity on the roads and the highways are engaged in criminal surveillance. That's the state of California. On the U.S. roads and highways, they're monitoring, and they're engaged in criminal surveillance. It is currently 7:48 a.m. It's 8:04 a.m.
on the plans. Oh, there it is. I think, what's the address? The one, is it 122 South Line? It'll say.
Go ahead. I totally like that. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. It's currently 9:37 a.m. The entity is engaged in psychopathic pacing, and so this is the increase in traffic into any area actually where I'm located. And because I am in the bathroom, and as I exit the bathroom and I remain standing outside in the hallway, the entity is engaged in what is relevant positioning. So relevant to where I am positioned, the target, which is also where you see things such as the light activity centered around the perimeter, which is the demons who are engaging in the behavior that is exhibited in the environment, i.e. the fake sun. The fake sun will be over me at the position that I hold inside of any building, which I've already documented at City Hall. This is where they are engaging what is pacing in and out of the bathroom. It's also where I captured a stalker, engaging what is maintaining presence outside of the women's restroom. And the moment that I open is when you are simultaneously entering the male restroom. That's the entity that is stalking and surveilling a woman in a bathroom. And that's the entity that's a sex offender. And the entity that's engaging in surveillance is designing buildings for the sex offense committed by a government maintaining surveillance. So the entity is engaging what is relevant positioning by virtue of the placement of restroom areas. It's a superficial separation with regard to walls and ceilings, where you are under surveillance by those that are in both the male restroom and everyone else inside of the building, of course, and the entity that you know is maintaining aerial surveillance while you are under a fake sun. This is an entity that is comprehensively monitoring you and monitoring your genitalia, monitoring your children and their genitalia. This is the absence of any privacy while demons engage in the robotic behavior of pacing wherever it is that I am located while they are outwardly conducting themselves as, you know, everything's normal, nothing to see here. That's the whole purpose of the surveillance system that is occurring in plain sight while you are ignorant about it actually being executed against you. And it is the program of psychological torture, especially while one like I'm documenting, as you are cognizant of it and you're documenting it, the entity is engaging in what is a serious act of war against an American citizen, and it's the government that shall stand down and not engage in what I've documented the entity doing, including while they're calling itself holding court hearings. All right, this is the entity that's engaging in the sophisticated iteration of gang stalking, the pattern of conduct in a courtroom, anything that is facilitating the ongoing criminal pattern of conduct, even while you are entertaining that which is criminally defamatory, while it is being investigated in real time. And you will not in any courtroom, and you won't in this court matter, in this case, defame the prosecutor while you are the defense. This is the entity, that's what the entity's tactic is. And it's absurd. It's as absurd as what I just stated, because that's exactly what they're trying to do. And this is only working when you are operating in secret, like this system typically operates, when you are operating outside of any evidence, as this entity is typically accustomed to, while you are engaging in what is creating all of the circumstances and literally the facts, while you are maintaining the control of the absolute narrative, and the entity doesn't have the ability to do that. So any and everyone that is claiming that they've ever had an encounter with me is one that is a documented stalker. And they are in that specific environment, and that includes anyone that thinks that by their position they are superseding and exceeding that classification, and they are not. They are also surrounded by the evidence of gang stalking. And under the Constitution, which also this P.O.C. stands on, and every American citizen is thereby represented, no one, including the government that is in fact gang stalking, is superior to the law. The entity is engaging in what is shown to be the heights of hypocrisy while they keep my vagina under surveillance inside of the facilitating venue of the Ontario City Hall, where they are zombies pacing in and out of the bathroom in engineer light, where I've already shown the fake sun is present early in the morning, in the middle of the afternoon, where the entity is targeting by flying over the city hall that has absolutely zero legitimacy. It is caught in the middle of the pattern of conduct, and this is the entity doing so inside of the building. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. The entity is engaged in this while the pattern of conduct is underway, and what is relevant is that this is the evidence of the mayor that's engaging in the, it's pathetic, it's psychopathic, it's disgusting, it's perverted, and it's criminal. So you have what is unfit, that the people of the state are coming inside of the city hall, sitting in the lobby area, monitoring on their devices, while the city of Ontario maintains light activity all around, just like I documented. They're surrounding all of the civic center area with light activity. They're monitoring. The entity is stalking by commercial planes. The entity is stalking by helicopter at 11:04 last night. Nobody forgot that. That same entity is gang stalking. This is the same location where they're stalking by helicopter. All right, this is massive surveillance, and they're engaged in surveillance of vagina. They're not surveilling some Unabomber, someone that's plotting to conduct some massive robbery and murder hundreds of people. No, they're surveilling my vagina. That's what they're spending millions of dollars on. All right, and they're doing so pursuant to what is the use of resources that are spent by tax dollars. The demon-possessed terrorists are paid by the city to engage in what is terrorism. And they're engaging in this conduct in concert with the military, the mentally ill homosexuals that cannot control themselves, and you listen to them gang stalking. So this is the entity that is the city of Ontario gang stalking right along with it. All right, and this is also the evidence that shall be establishing martial law where any state is engaging in this P.O.C. All right, Securitas is gang stalking using the golf cart. She starts her and starts moving. Well, the moment I refer to her, she's monitoring my vagina. Alrighty, license 1567279, City of Ontario, outside of the City Hall. And Kevin, that committed a battery under the fake sun, employed with the City of Ontario, just gang stalking me in plain sight. The entity is going to be prosecuted for this. He is going to prison. He's not the only City of Ontario employee who's going to federal prison, but this is the entity that engages in that lawlessness, that engages in that criminal activity against a target individual. And you don't call the police that are kidnapping you and stalking and harassing you, and they're going to be compensating an American citizen for that. That's the U.S. military, the government, that is gang stalking you through the people of the state, where you are literally without any cause, where the entity is doing so outside of what is an ongoing investigation. And the result for engaging in battery, where the entity is gang stalking you, is prison. And you're also going to be compensating the American citizen for that unfathomable, incalculable level of harm and violation, where you cannot just call the police when someone batters you, where you are not encountering a person that's battering you, where you are being threatened on a ceaseless basis by some psychopath that engages in hysterical laughter with a pot belly and a fat nose filled with burgers, and engaging in what is stalking like a demon under the fake sun and is hostile to that documentation, so you commit a battery. These are the cowards that are gang stalking, and the city of Ontario is going to compensate for that. License plate 1476525, and they are monitoring my vagina. Kevin is a sex offender that is a documented violent offender, while the entity is flying over the very city hall where I was inside right now, documenting psychopathic pacing. Okay, outside, the light activity around the building. Inside, psychopathic pacing and engineer light, pursuant to what is surveillance in a bathroom. And that is the removal and the prosecution for a terrorist. His name is Paul Leon. All right, and I did publish which they're monitoring ongoing evidence that is to be used against this entity, which is the podcast for today, June 18, 2026. Remember, in June 18, 2026, the entity is kidnapping me inside of the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. I am documenting the fake sun, where I am forced to document a criminal pattern of conduct that I'm subject to against the system, not just San Bernardino County Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. San Bernardino County Arrowhead Regional Medical Center is the entity that's engaging in what is kidnapping as an entity, engaging in what is criminal defamation that then this entity is relying upon while they are delaying what is prosecuting itself. That's what this entity is doing, relying upon the kidnappers of Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, the kidnappers of the Ontario Police Department that are stalking me this morning on camera. While the entity is doing so with the military, you're not conducting any court hearings, and you need to prepare yourself because you're going to prison. You are going to prison. This is absurdly corrupt and hypocritical. And it's no slap on the wrist. It's prison for terrorism, domestic terrorism. And that's what the entity is engaging in. And when I am released from kidnapping, I go about a documentation tour. I go to Rancho Cucamonga and I show you the fake sun over the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court at the same time that it's over the clowns of the Ontario Police Department who committed kidnapping on June 16, 2022. That's on the record already. While the entity is keeping the fake sun over me in Upland, California, those pictures that they don't want you to see, while I publish them and show you the fake sun over me in Upland, California at 11:05 a.m. and at 11:05 a.m. on June 16, 2022, where this entity, via criminal defamation, committed kidnapping and are to date still stalking me as a department, which is an entity in concert with the U.S. military, using planes and helicopters and jets to stalk me. They're engaging in this conduct. And under the fake sun, the Upland Public Library is competing with the placement of the fake sun over the gang members that are all going to prison at the Ovitt Family Community Library, where the fake sun also rises and sets. Okay, that absurdity, which is a matter of tangible evidence, which no courthouse is going to maintain some sort of ridiculous court hearing about some sort of defamation that doesn't exist. You're holding hot air. You're holding fumes while I have evidence about your mental illness, because the impossibility of this environment where you're engaging in surveillance is the same evidence that's going to be used to have you diagnosed. While you seek to project your mental illness, your psychopathic disorder, regarding what is defaming a targeted individual because you're embarrassed about being a demon. And defamation is no way to defend yourself in a criminal case, and that's what the government is doing. That's what the government attempted to do, and it's terrorism. And I'll prosecute you for it. I'll have your bar license for it. This is the P.O.C. Walking out of the Ontario City Hall, and all of the entity is monitoring my vagina together. And that's what's relevant regarding criminal facilitation, regarding the entity that is engaging in that pattern of conduct. I'm going to go ahead and capture images of the entity that is pacing around. This is what they were doing inside of the building of the City Hall. All they're doing is pacing all around. This is what they're doing in the sky space via aircraft, pacing around. This is what they're doing using their headlights, which is pacing around in the engineer light. And their entity is also an engineer light right now. It's just a gray hue. I've already documented the remaining environment. Engineer light is always present. So is the government that is stalking, always present. All right, this is P.O.C. It is currently 9:49 a.m. Alrighty, this is relevant to the entity that is now they're flying over the parking lot of the library as opposed to flying over the city hall. All right, this is the entity that's engaging in that based on use of my devices. This is the entity that's surrounding stalking on the roads and the highways, what the red truck is doing. Facilitating light activity is what the city of Ontario is doing while they're maintaining all manner of light activity. And this is relevant to what you're listening to on the podcast as I document gang stalking inside of a state facilitating venue. That is the Ontario City Hall that's engaging in the perpetual sex offense while the employees of the city are engaged in the gang stalking with the U.S. military that are maintaining planes over Ontario downtown luxury apartments at 320 North Euclid Avenue, where I already have the fake sunset, and fake sunrise at the same apartment complex. And then the entities engage in what is this conduct where you are in Upland, California. Okay, there's no takeoff over here. There are no takeoffs that are going to occur over the apartment complex where you're clearly violating, for example, quiet enjoyment under a contract. Why are the people of the state not complaining about that, noticing it or anything? Because they're gang stalking. In the same way that they don't notice the fake sun and that their cars shoot out light when they're driving by you. And yeah, that P.O.C. 8 SMS 537. This is the entity that committed kidnapping on June 16, 2022. This is the entity that is still gang stalking on what is June 18, 2026, and this is the entity that's going to be subject to martial law. The U.S. military is monitoring with the state of California, that's going to be put on lockdown regarding martial law. All right, and this is the barbarism of gang stalking. This is a stalking society. This is a surveillance state. All right, this is P.O.C. and they are mentally ill. All right, and by mentally ill, they are psychopathic and engage in what is antisocial, highly delusional behavior, where they are now exposed and they're doing it in front of the world. Ontario Montclair School District is monitoring in concert with the demons that are the minors pacing out of Ovid Family Community Library. That's being shut down and the employees are going to prison as surely as you see the U.S. military flying over that building. And last night, what you heard on the podcast was the military stalking me by helicopter while I'm at that very building. All right. They are monitoring. And this is the city of Ontario gang stalking. As I travel to another city, the city is stalking into another city where that pattern of conduct is underway. That's the state. City to city surveillance, that's the state that is gang stalking. And they're doing so on the roads and the highways, okay? This is P.O.C. Ontario is engaging in surveillance on the roads and the highways as well. This is, again, relevant to the loss of privileges for the domestic terrorists that are engaging in that pattern of conduct. 5044, molesting me with impossible light right here. I've documented under the fake sun, the city of Ontario demons. And Kevin engaging in what is a battery, the city of Ontario demons working for the city. The entities engaging in this while they are surrounding with light activity. This is what I'm showing you the entities engaging in, and they're doing so while they're taking off over College of Laverne Unit of Law. Okay, when I am south of this location, they're taking off south of my location, meaning they're taking off over the city hall. Laverne is right next to the city hall. That's now Southwest Airlines. This is a matter of judicial notice. So you're looking at the same pattern of conduct. This is psychopathic pacing. License plate 9JER839. Okay, this is P.O.C. And the entity is engaging in what is stalking in this parking lot last night on video, where you saw the entity flying over here. That's because I was over there. They maintain position south of my person while they stalk me as I travel north. Okay, and that's why on video last night, the entity is stalking by plane, doing a U-turn over this parking lot, and then you see another plane flying west, just like they are now flying west over downtown Ontario luxury apartments, which is the identification of a defendant. Just like they're flying over the city hall, and I'm inside of that city hall, and those demons are monitoring. They're stalking, they're pacing around, engaging in criminal activity. All right, the entity, it is a crime to engage in literally walking in relevant position. Yes, it is a crime to engage in what is, in other words, criminal presence in the path on behalf of that military that's conspiring the murder of an American citizen, and also thinks that they're going to conduct court hearings, which is nothing other than criminal facilitation. While the entity seeks to defame, when you will not defame anybody that you're gang stalking. All right, and you're going to prison while you're doing so. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:56 a.m. Alrighty, this is the entity that is indeed stalking, all right? And they're advancing as I advance. This is literally the evidence of stalking. And it's the people around you that are engaging in gang stalking with the military. 9UDG120. This is a systematic stalker right here, the employee of ARCO, who is subject to prison 9TIH 520, and ARCO is being federally prosecuted under federal RICO. And the gang stalking customers are maintaining surveillance by stalking in the path at the very gas stalls themselves, while the government engages in stalking. Cool Transports is a heavily documented stalker at ARCO, and so are the Ontario Police Department. This is the P.O.C. I just documented the stalker driving this way, capture them. They drive around while the entity flies over by plane, and they're engaging what is incriminating everybody. This is an entirely heavily documented crime scene, by the way. And this is the entity, including the Ontario police, who are subject to martial law. Losing the privileges to be on the roads and the highways where they're stalking, engaging what is in criminal monitoring with the military that's stalking, losing the privileges of being in the sky space, the airports being shut down. These are stalkers using planes and helicopters. This is P.O.C. That's Southwest, that has no passengers and is not headed to a destination. And these are stalkers as well. PSIY 947. This same thing happened last night while they're stalking at the intersection, and it was Michael GERKEN stalking with the fire truck, which was light activity while the demon was stalking at the light on the roads and the highways. This is PWNISHR. That's the front plate. Let's make sure that that's a genuine plate. They're stalking with the Ontario Police, which is federal prison. The employees of ARCO are engaging in that pattern of conduct. You're looking at psychopathic pacing while they're doing U-turns over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. This is the actual license plate, 7MBJ277. Balbira's gang stalking as an employee, systematically doing so. And that's the federal RICO case against Chevron that's being prosecuted not just civilly, but criminally. Chevron is a co-conspirator of surveillance in furtherance of murder. A co-conspirator of murder while they engage in surveillance with the city of Ontario, the people of the state, gang stalking with the Ontario police. Alrighty, this is relevant to the entity that is now they're flying over the parking lot of the library as opposed to flying over the city hall. All right, this is the entity that's engaging in that based on use of my devices. This is the entity that's surrounding stalking on the roads and the highways is what the red truck is doing. Facilitating light activity is what the city of Ontario is doing while they're maintaining all manner of light activity. And this is relevant to what you're listening to on the podcast as I document gang stalking inside of a state facilitating venue. That is the Ontario City Hall that's engaging in the perpetual sex offense while the employees of the city are engaged in the gang stalking with the U.S. military that are maintaining planes over Ontario downtown luxury apartments at 320 North Euclid Avenue, where I already have the fake sunset, and fake sunrise at the same apartment complex. And then the entities engage in what is this conduct where you are in Upland, California. Okay, there's no takeoff over here. There are no takeoffs that are going to occur over the apartment complex where you're clearly violating, for example, quiet enjoyment under a contract. Why are the people of the state not complaining about that, noticing it or anything? Because they're gang stalking. In the same way that they don't notice the fake sun and that their cars shoot out light when they're driving by you. And yeah, that P.O.C. 8 SMS 537. This is the entity that committed kidnapping on June 16, 2022. This is the entity that is still gang stalking on what is June 18, 2026, and this is the entity that's going to be subject to martial law. The U.S. military is monitoring with the state of California, that's going to be put on lockdown regarding martial law. All right, and this is the barbarism of gang stalking. This is a stalking society. This is a surveillance state. All right, this is P.O.C. and they are mentally ill. All right, and by mentally ill, they are psychopathic and engage in what is antisocial, highly delusional behavior where they are now exposed and they're doing it in front of the world. Ontario Montclair School District is monitoring in concert with the demons that are the minors pacing out of Ovid Family Community Library. That's being shut down and the employees are going to prison as surely as you see the U.S. military flying over that building. And last night, what you heard on the podcast was the military stalking me by helicopter while I'm at that very building. All right. They are monitoring. And this is the city of Ontario gang stalking. As I travel to another city, the city is stalking into another city where that pattern of conduct is underway. That's the state. City to city surveillance, that's the state that is gang stalking. And they're doing so on the roads and the highways, okay? This is P.O.C. Ontario is engaging in surveillance on the roads and the highways as well. This is, again, relevant to the loss of privileges for the domestic terrorists that are engaged in that pattern of conduct. 5044, molesting me with impossible light right here. I've documented under the fake sun, the city of Ontario demons. And Kevin engaging in what is a battery, the city of Ontario demons working for the city. The entities engaging in this while they are surrounding with light activity. This is what I'm showing you the entities engaging in, and they're doing so while they're taking off over College of Laverne Unit of Law. Okay, when I am south of this location, they're taking off south of my location, meaning they're taking off over the city hall. Laverne is right next to the city hall. That's now Southwest Airlines. This is a matter of judicial notice. So you're looking at the same pattern of conduct. This is psychopathic pacing. License plate 9JER839. Okay, this is P.O.C. And the entity is engaging in what is stalking in this parking lot last night on video, where you saw the entity flying over here. That's because I was over there. They maintain position south of my person while they stalk me as I travel north. Okay, and that's why on video last night, the entity is stalking by plane, doing a U-turn over this parking lot, and then you see another plane flying west, just like they are now flying west over downtown Ontario luxury apartments, which is the identification of a defendant. Just like they're flying over the city hall, and I'm inside of that city hall, and those demons are monitoring. They're stalking, they're pacing around, engaging in criminal activity. All right, the entity, it is a crime to engage in literally walking in relevant position. Yes, it is a crime to engage in what is, in other words, criminal presence in the path on behalf of that military that's conspiring the murder of an American citizen, and also thinks that they're going to conduct court hearings, which is nothing other than criminal facilitation. While the entity seeks to defame, when you will not defame anybody that you're gang stalking. All right, and you're going to prison while you're doing so. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:56 a.m. Alrighty, this is the entity that is indeed stalking, all right? And they're advancing as I advance. This is literally the evidence of stalking. And it's the people around you that are engaging in gang stalking with the military. 9UDG120. This is a systematic stalker right here, the employee of ARCO, who is subject to prison, 9TIH520, and ARCO is being federally prosecuted under federal RICO. And the gang stalking customers are maintaining surveillance by stalking in the path at the very gas stalls themselves, while the government engages in stalking. Cool Transports is a heavily documented stalker at ARCO, and so are the Ontario Police Department. This is the P.O.C. I just documented the stalker driving this way, capture them. They drive around while the entity flies over by plane, and they're engaging what is incriminating everybody. This is an entirely heavily documented crime scene, by the way. And this is the entity, including the Ontario police, who are subject to martial law. Losing the privileges to be on the roads and the highways where they're stalking, engaging in what is in criminal monitoring with the military that's stalking, losing the privileges of being in the sky space, the airport's being shut down. These are stalkers using planes and helicopters. This is P.O.C. That's Southwest, that has no passengers and is not headed to a destination. And these are stalkers as well. PSIY 947. This same thing happened last night while they're stalking at the intersection, and it was Michael GERKEN stalking with the fire truck, which was light activity while the demon was stalking at the light on the roads and the highways. This is PWNISHR. That's the front plate. Let's make sure that that's a genuine plate. They're stalking with the Ontario Police, which is federal prison. The employees of ARCO are engaging in that pattern of conduct. You're looking at psychopathic pacing while they're doing U-turns over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. This is the actual license plate, 7MBJ277. Balbira is gang stalking as an employee, systematically doing so. And that's the federal RICO case against Chevron that's being prosecuted not just civilly, but criminally. Chevron is a co-conspirator of surveillance in furtherance of murder. A co-conspirator of murder while they engage in surveillance with the city of Ontario, the people of the state, gang stalking with the Ontario police. This is a demon, and he's engaged in what is the criminal act of psychological torture by stalking with impossible light, and it's occurring under the guise of light that's substantial. It's glaring in my peripheral vision, and it's supposed to be happening off of his watch. This is a demon, and he is gang stalking. He's literally stalking me in the library, and it's actually represented by the military who are engaging in surveillance. And this is the evidence that he is indeed engaging in something supernatural. This is a demon. Satan doesn't have a race. This is an Asian male. Never met him before. He's much acquainted with my vagina, what happened in the bathroom approximately 15-20 minutes ago. And he sits next to me with regard to what is stalking in the path as I return from the bathroom. And he's inside of the Upland Public Library under the 3:56 p.m. fake sun, while he is stalking me with impossible light, which is the pattern of conduct of the mentally ill. And this is the proof of it, that the fake sun is still over the same roof that it is when I walk in at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, this is an entity, just as you can see, the entity is slamming the door behind me as I move my phone camera angle. That's a demon stalking with noise. This is the window where he's sitting under, and there is no vantage point where including using that watch that is ever going to create the light activity that he is creating as a demon. All right, this is where you're looking at both, again, the demonic activity that's occurring in plain sight, much of which you are ignorant of. The entity that is stalking with light is the entity that is monitoring you, and it is the outward demonstration of demon possession. And even if this demon were engaging in the obnoxious and psychologically harmful conduct of stalking me with light, because these demons are hostile and fearful of the evidence that I continuously publish. Today I'm on May 1st, 2026. This is an entity that's engaging in what is showing you that they're demons under a fake sun that's remaining over the same roof. It is 3:57 p.m. right now. This is 7:01 p.m. where the exit of the same Upland Public Library includes this scene, which is speaking to evidence that this is a terrorist. This is synonymous in the court with what is understood as a demon-possessed person. This is someone whose mental illness is addressed by virtue of that phrase, and it is proven through the maintenance of a specific environment where that pattern of conduct, which is pursuant to criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder of a targeted individual, that has the evidence of the pattern of conduct which is prosecuting the United States government. This is impossible that the sun would still be here even 3 hours from now, but this is what I have, where the entity has the fake sun at 7:01 p.m. when this library closes, and it is in alignment to me as I step out of this venue where ongoing gang stalking by the very demons who are under the guise of being patrons, stalking me and keeping me under surveillance inside of the library and engaging in what is also touching me with light. And here is the evidence of the fake sun that is over me inside of the same library, which I captured in the morning on June 16, 2026. Remember, it is, just to help you remember, today is June 18, 2026. This is the entity that is indeed gang stalking, and this is the evidence where you're not able to capture what is a demon engaging in criminal conduct, which is psychologically harmful, where Satan thinks that he can terrorize, haunt, stalk you, and you have no proof of it, and that's supposed to be the evidence that you're mentally ill. To the contrary, and ironically, and praise be to God, you're going to prosecute terrorists like this demon who's engaged in what is stalking as recognized under federal law as an entity with regard to a pattern of conduct by a government that's maintaining criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder and psychological torture. And this is the evidence where you will be able to do that. This is the fake sun over the same staircase. And this is the staircase where I am present right now. This is 10:14 a.m. All right. And this is the same staircase where you just saw that same environment, which is where a demon is indeed stalking me with light, touching my face with it while he moves his wrist around, while he is monitoring me in close proximity. Okay, this is the pattern of conduct, and that's the pattern. The entity is doing the same thing when they're driving in their vehicles and they're touching with light streaming across the sidewalk. This is the inside version of that demonic P.O.C. That which is demonic is criminal under federal law, and it is used to diagnose in order to involuntarily commit the terrorists that are stalking on behalf of the U.S. military. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 4:01 p.m. This is P.O.C. The issue is how many people in this household are getting deported, okay? Exhibit A. This is P.O.C. stalking with AMR yesterday, engaging in criminal summoning right here at this intersection. The entity engaging what is targeting me by commercial planes the day before that. This is how an entity is engaged in monitoring you, gang stalking where they reside, and a demon that's supposedly not gang stalking you, just coming out and taking a picture of you out of nowhere. That's the entity that's engaging what is monitoring you in a prison, okay? On top of what is being deported if they're not natural born citizens. And those are the unintelligent homosexuals of the U.S. military who were stalking me in Upland, California about 25 minutes ago at 220 North Euclid Avenue, and they're gang stalking with the people in Ontario, California. This is people. How do you know that those homosexuals are stalking me? Those cult members that are being committed? Oh, because this is the fake sun. This is the fake sun right here in alignment to me. The same fake sun that's over me while I'm walking down this street, and the people of the state that are going to be subject to martial law are stalking as a society. They're also stalking in their homes. You see that engineer light all over the venue? 748 North Euclid Avenue. 750 North Euclid Avenue, going out of her way to come out and use her device. You see that engineer light on her door? This is the entity that's being federally prosecuted in prison. This is an unlawful threat by terrorists who engage in this sort of conduct when you are gang stalking with the state. All right, they're stalking as an entity up and down the street under the fake sun. They're going to be subject to martial law, everybody. And demons like this are being deported. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, that's the pattern of conduct. And this is the entity that's engaged in that while there. You see my shadow over there? That's impossible light activity. That's a stalker. All right, that's the entity that's doing that while you're stalking by helicopter. That's called conspicuous surveillance. And this is where the entities engage in that pattern of conduct. I am literally at American Inn at 7 in the morning on September 1st, 2025, where the prospective deportees are gang stalking by place of residence. It's called a facilitating venue under the fake sun, where the government's maintaining surveillance where you live, where you're stalking with the population. Oh, you're a terrorist. License 6LPE291 wants you to know that they're gang stalking. Noted. This is P.O.C. It is currently 7:31 p.m. Where under no circumstances, daylight saving time or not, is the sun going to be over the same person, number one. Number two, at the same location, American Inn at 755 North Euclid Avenue, where the people of the state are engaging in the pattern of conduct, and where the federal government is going to come through and deport all of the immigrants in California. And if they're living at 750 or 748 North Euclid Avenue, this video evidence is serving to make sure that they are on that list, because they're being prosecuted right now. This is P.O.C. and this is the basis of prison as well. That's the military that's stalking me coming from Upland. That's Upland that's stalking. This is P.O.C. It is currently 7:32 p.m.
Homicide singer.
This is P.O.C. This is Ontario police who are gang stalking with the people of the state that are always monitoring with the Ontario International Airport, the U.S. military. And so criminal summoning, while I'm publishing the podcast, they're stalking with light, monitoring with the military that's flying over. This is the same P.O.C. They're coming and monitoring. And I am the actual focus, not this demon that's gang stalking me all the time. This is the guys for stalking in the path conspicuously. This is P.O.C. They're driving across the property and they're focusing on someone who's sleeping between the columns. What even drew their attention to him while he's sitting over here? The entity is monitoring me. This is the department that's being shut down. This is P.O.C. This is P.O.C. This is vehicle 1068. This is license plate 1644203. And this is criminal summoning. This is the entity that's stalking me every night and knows exactly where I'm sleeping, and they're engaging in psychopathic behavior, diverting their visual attention to the people of the state, first of all, with whom they're gang stalking. This is P.O.C. And I want to be clear, like I said, when they're, that's engineer light, pay attention to the light activity. He's sitting on the columns and they are driving through, that's the fake moon. This is indeed P.O.C. These are demons, and that's light activity while he has a flashlight on. This is all light activity. While the entity, as you know, is stalking right here. They're going to prison. But this is what I want to show you. The entity is engaging in, first of all, stalking me. This is why the Ontario police are being disbanded. The entity was stalking me by helicopter. This department is gang stalking. These two are going to prison. They're mentally ill. These are demons in engineer light. They're going to prison.
Nice to see you.
Who are you? Who are you?
I don't want to.
Oh, you don't want? Why you say nice to see me? Who am I? Oh, okay. You're going to prison. That's P.O.C. This is domestic terrorism. This is domestic terrorism. They're monitoring with the U.S. military. They're going to prison. Vehicle 1068, monitoring with the people of the state, 1644203. and they're gang stalking with the people. They just want to come around and monitor me. That's what they want. These are demons that are obsessed with me. They're driving through the Civic Center at what is 10:17 p.m. and using the people of the state as their focal point when they're gang stalking me under the fake moon, where the fake sun rises and sets while the military flies right over targeting. And they're doing so because they're hostile about what it is I'm continuously publishing on the internet. And the Ontario police are being disbanded, committed a series of kidnappings, and you're looking at their mental illness based on their obsession with me. They're pacing right now. And I want to be clear, this is the entity that's holding court hearings. Oh, they're holding court hearings regarding defamation by these stalkers. They're going to prison, gang stalking in the court. They're going to federal prison, gang stalking with this department. They relied on this criminal activity of this department to engage in criminal defamation while they are stalking. This is a demon using the vehicle. These are demons that are manifesting. This is light activity. And this is an act of aggression. And this is, again, those two, that was a male and a female, and they're going to prison. And this is around Paul Leon's office. Pay attention. All this is legally relevant. Paul Leon's being removed from office, being prosecuted as well. This is the entity that knows where I'm sleeping. Okay? Coming in, driving through. Just because you're able to do that, that doesn't mean that it's naturally happening. They're targeting. Okay? They're targeting. They drove through the Civic Center where they know where I'm at. You already know that they're stalking because they're stalking me all night, every day, by helicopter and planes. And the entity is engaging what is driving through the Civic Center after 10 o'clock at night and focusing on this drug addict who was gang stalking me with them. And they're engaging in what is as though the Civic Center area is open. So they're coming and escorting him off when it's not closed. You don't have to get up and leave or anything. You're talking about what is a means of threatening me because they know that I'm sleeping here. And guess what? The entity is gang stalking me at work, interfering with my liberty right, and that's why I'm outside. And before you knew you were going to prison, you thought that that was the perfect master plan. Hazelwood and Owens committing kidnapping pursuant to your criminal acts of interfering with my right to go to work and sleep inside of my apartment, my home, whatever hotel room I have. That is not happening because you're gang stalking me and you're going to prison for kidnapping, period. This is the entity that's engaging in the pattern of conduct, by the way. This is about the fact that I'm sleeping here and they already know that. And this is the entity that's communicating a threat, and the federal government is aware of that. And the feds are watching, which they also did not know. They thought they were getting away with stalking me. They thought that they were getting away with defaming me. And the federal government has been watching, especially the Ontario police and the military, stalk me and kidnap me and stalk me and kidnap me and stalk me and kidnap me. They've been watching that whole ongoing sequence. That was a threat. Okay? The entity is engaging what is monitoring my evidence as I put it on the internet. The Ontario police are not doing anything other than kidnapping. They're not doing anything other than stalking. And they are the reason why I'm sleeping outside. And they also are engaging in nothing other than threatening to commit kidnappings. I'm going to continue to sleep outside because this is where their criminal act has put me, and this is the entity. I want to be clear. You're not holding court hearings and coming around and threatening through the Ontario police is exactly why you're going to prison. That's why you're going to federal prison. You're not conducting any court hearings when you are engaging in kidnapping with these same demons who then you rely on their criminal acts committed in order to engage in what is trying to survey the libelous information produced by the kidnappers themselves. You're going to federal prison regarding the ongoing delay regarding justice. That's going to end up putting you in prison. That's what you get from the Ontario police stalking right now on video. That's the same stalking entity that the entity is relying on when they're holding court hearings. And they literally just engaged in the pattern of conduct stalking by commercial planes, which have no scheduled flights, that are not going to be flying over the city hall. This is the judicially noticed facts that they are engaging in targeting in concert with that department that has committed a series of kidnappings while they were stalking in this exact same manner. And they do so with regard to the intent to retaliate and threaten while they focus on the people of the state who are gang stalking, knowing exactly where I'm sleeping every night, stalking me while doing so. This is P.O.C. Coming in and driving in. This is the entity that wants to normalize, oh, you're over here and we don't know that you're sleeping. That's the P.O.C. Excuse me?
I hope you have a wonderful day.
What? What'd you say?
I said have a wonderful day.
That's Gerber, who's going to prison. That was a different one. This is vehicle 1021. This is the department that's going to be disbanded. This is an entity that's stalking, and this is what happens when a police department is stalking you and you're prosecuting them, and you're exposing basically an infestation of demons. This is what happens, and this is why they are being removed from the roads and the highways. They're also being removed from what is the ability to be in law enforcement. This is a threat to your life. This is the pattern of conduct. All right, and this is also why I'm publishing the evidence on social media, because this is the entity that commits kidnappings, and then they lie about what it is that you're guilty of. Engaging what is kidnapping you for violating the municipal code while leaving out the fact that they were stalking and monitoring you at work, which is the inability to provide for yourself, which is literally why they do that, so you're outside so that they can stalk and harass you and target you. All right, that's the entity that's engaging in that P.O.C. That's Gerber that engaged in criminal summoning on March 3rd, 2026. And you're looking at the second Ontario police that are pacing. This is hostility. Mike LORENZ is going to prison. They were stalking me by helicopter in Upland and in Ontario. He's going to prison, and the Ontario police, every single last one of them that are stalking like this, are going to prison. Gerber's driving. His passenger's going to prison as well. This is P.O.C. This is stalking, not law enforcement. And so are they, stalking. So coming and focusing on the people of the state, and doing so in the environment where you know that I'm sleeping, you're going to prison for threatening me. This is what they don't understand. That's criminal activity. Threatening as a department is criminal. That's a crime that they just committed again on video. This is the entity while you're stalking. In order to threaten me, you're stalking. That's a crime as well. This is the entity that's doing so with the U.S. military. That's, again, psychological torture. While you're doing so with the people of the state, the ones that you commit kidnappings with. Don't forget about the June 16, 2022 kidnapping. All of this is relevant. They're just engaged in more criminal activity on video. That's the pattern of conduct, and they are psychopaths that don't have any self-control. Just like the demons that they are conspiring murder against me with. The demons that are stalking in the commercial plane, which you saw in this video. Okay, this is the prosecution for treason. This is the federal RICO case. This is the federal prosecution for the conspiracy to murder and kidnap, which the Ontario Police Department are the foundational means whereby the U.S. military is kidnapping American citizens through the city police who are gang stalking. All right, and this department is being disbanded for it. This is P.O.C. You just saw the purpose of the people of the state to engage in criminal summoning. This is P.O.C. You're going to look at the my social media, because the entire playlist that's on the face of my YouTube channel, it's called Criminal Summoning, which is used to psychologically torture. It's used to threaten. It's used to retaliate. It's used to psychologically torture as an entity. It's used to threaten kidnapping and actually commit kidnapping as an entity. And every single last actor in that playlist is going to prison. And the entity is engaging in this while they are literally triggered by my evidence. And that is speaking to the truth of what I speak. That's speaking to the power of the evidence that I have published online. And it is also directly debunking that you will ever defame as a means of defending the fact that you are stalking an American citizen. They literally are proving that they're stalkers in this. And this is also why you are in the courts conducting any hearings while I've been being gang stalked. I want you to know your names and your identities, because you're going to prison. I cannot make that any clearer for you. You are going to federal prison. You were never holding any legitimate court hearings, and it shall be understood that no government will engage in with the things that you have done, and stating that you didn't know and that you could have better handled is not a defense when someone's life is on the line. Just like this is demonstrating, just like the gang stalkers of the military are demonstrating, you are going to prison, and you know who you are. This is the P.O.C. While I publish evidence on the internet and I'm subject to this terrorism, criminal acts committed against me by the government, you are going to prison. And this is why you don't gang stalk with a bunch of sociopaths that don't have self-control when the plan goes awry, because you're going to be prosecuted for it. You're holding hands with maniacal psychopaths who lack self-control in order to protect you from not going to prison. You cannot protect them from going to prison, and they are certainly not protecting you. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 10:26 p.m. This is retaliation. Okay, this is a drug addict. He's going to prison. And he's gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department. He doesn't have anywhere to go and no future. This is why he's engaging in it in the first place. He's digging in the trash can with a flashlight because he's a demon monitoring. He's doing so while he is gang stalking. The Ontario Police are driving through the center while he's sitting on the floor in between two columns where, how do you even notice him? Well, his head is bent down. They're focusing on me. But I just want to show you the unnatural circumstances where they go to that instance. And this is a mentally ill psychopath. This is a demon that's engaging in what is monitoring while he's homeless. Another one that cannot wash his behind, and he's stalking another person. Okay? And this is the entity that's doing so as a population of stalkers. That's the people of the state. All right, that's P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaging in what is threats. The Ontario Police and Mike LORENZ are threatening me, and they're doing so while they're going to prison for that. You're going to prison while you're bearing a gun, driving around in a city vehicle, acting as though you have authority under the law. That was the fictitious exercise of authority, as though you're a legitimate police officer. You're not. You're gang stalking. And even when you talk to the people of the state next to me, that is a threat. And the federal government's you're going to prison. And you that are calling yourself holding court hearings, that's why I'm outside right now, you're going to prison. That's what you need to understand. The Ontario Police, the U.S. military, the people of the state accomplish for you. That's the criminal conspiracy to engage in what is federal group stalking and monitoring and further into murdering somebody. And where you thought that the perfect plan is to just delay and prolong and stall while someone is gang stalked to death, someone is gang stalked into a cell, a facility, you're going to prison for it. Okay, this is P.O.C. It is currently 10:27 p.m. That's P.O.C. This is the environment where they are under the fake moon and they're engaging in that which is not pursuant to some drug addict that's passed out between the columns. This is the entity which we already know they know where I'm sleeping. We already know that. Everybody knows where I'm sleeping. They know that you're monitoring my vagina. You're not doing anything other than criminal activity. You're stalking. All right? You're not police officers. You're stalkers. And you've committed series of kidnappings, and that documented threat is why you are going to prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:28 p.m. Ontario Police Department are stalking me, and they already knew that I was here. They were engaging in what was a documented threat regarding a threat regarding hostility and retaliation for my evidence, for the statements made on my podcast. These transparent demons are highly predictable because of the pattern of conduct, and the entity that is stalking me where I'm sleeping is not the entity that has any authority to conduct a kidnapping while I'm sleeping outside, also because of them. And this entity that is stalking me by helicopter is the evidence of it. I just want to be clear, the Ontario Police are stalking me 24 hours a day, including while I'm in any other city, such as in Upland, while it is the same entity. The entity engaged in what was that documented communication of a threat, and it is evidence to be used against the entirety of the U.S. government that is monitoring through the people of the state, and the city of Ontario represents the state of California. And they're engaged in stalking while wearing uniforms and not engaging in the execution of the duties of officers. And the entity that is stalking me by helicopter is the same Ontario Police Department. I just want to be clear, like I stated, they were coming here, where they know that I'm sleeping, stalking, and they come and communicate a threat. And you're making a threat to commit kidnapping, and that is also a crime. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 11:28 p.m.